I've heard it said.
Another year come and gone, another long, long list of horrors endured. To paraphrase an oft-repeated sentiment, what a long century this year has been. So now, to reward us for our survival, let us celebrate some of the media that helped us get through this year. The purpose of this video is twofold. First, we're going to revisit the seasonal anime I covered on this channel, briefly tracking my updated thoughts on those shows in order to identify my anime of the year. Then we're going to discuss my favorite games, movies, TV shows, and books from the year, which will hopefully give you, dear viewer, some recommendations to check out.
I have been changed for good.
The vast majority of anime I watched this year, I watched for the express purpose of making videos about, which means, if you've been watching this channel, you've probably already heard me talk about my anime of the year. If you want to hear more detailed thoughts on the premieres of the anime we're about to discuss, go check out their respective seasonal anime videos. For this section, since at least one viewer has expressed interest in follow-up thoughts on the seasonal anime I recommended, we're going to briefly touch on that now. I did not pick up any shows I dropped or put on hold as I've been way too goddamn busy for that. I finished every anime I picked up because I don't know how to drop things once I've started them. Woe is me. Now, let's do a brief overview of each season in turn, first touching on the overall seasons, then focusing on the best of each. The summer season was absolutely stacked with great shows. Of the 16 I watched, I would only now recommend against picking up 2, Fairmat's Kitchen and April Showers Bring May Flowers. While I wouldn't call them bad shows, nor can I reasonably argue your time wouldn't be better spent elsewhere, especially in such an already stacked season. The former leaned a bit too hard into workplace stress as the foundation for its narrative and, at the risk of alienating the normal people watching this video, got a little compat. The latter was generally cute, but the secret mean girl characterization of one of the leads was extremely tiring. Among the 4 shows I recommended as the best, Takopi's Original Sin, The Summer Hikaru Died, There's No Freaking Way I'll Be Your Lover Unless, and Silent Witch, I would only have to revoke the best status from Silent Witch. It's still a good show, but I did not jive with the school setting. So the main character has already graduated from school and is forced to go back. I've had literal actual nightmares about that. And the dynamic I was most looking forward to, which was set up by the opening episode, that between Monica and Isabel, straight up didn't happen, which I found to be terribly disappointing. Aside from that, my 3 other best of recommendations still hold strong. No Freaking Way remained a shockingly good adaptation throughout its run, and the coveted first arc finale that is the focus of the 4th volume of the original light novel is getting a standalone OVA soon, and by soon, I mean somewhere around the time this video is coming out. So this show continues to be peak. I enjoyed the original light novels, but this adaptation was so fucking good that it gave me a new appreciation for the source material, elevated my fondness for the story. Really gotta make an adaptation analysis video on it one day. Similarly, The Summer Hikaru Died is such a good adaptation that it makes me want to go read the source material. The quiet, oppressive atmosphere it builds from its sound design and cinematography is astounding, and the tragedy and horror endured by the protagonists is simply enthralling. Finally, Takopi is consistently stellar, from its unique visual design to the heartbreaking narrative about how violence begets violence, the sins of the parents being passed down to their children, and the courage it takes to overcome that system. Takopi's Original Sin showed how to snatch hope from even the deepest pits of despair. It was turbulent and often hard to watch, and for its unflinching portrayal of violence and hope, its payoff is that much more cathartic. The fall season of anime this year was less stacked than the prior. Among the shows I picked up if I could go back in time and drop 2 would be Shabake and Banished Court Magician. On the former, while I appreciated its unique setting, the overall narrative structure was too meandering and unfocused for me to really get invested. On the latter, I don't know man, things happened. There was a spark of interest with the introduction of a new side character, Olivia. She and one of the main characters, Krasia, had something of a compelling push and pull relationship. That could have been a fun dynamic to delve further into, but the rest of the cast remained fairly static, and Olivia got left behind at the end of the season when they went off to whatever new adventures Season 2 brings, so I can't say I'm terribly interested in finding out what happens next. Among the 3 I recommended, may I ask for one final thing? Sanda and This Monster Wants to Eat Me, while I really liked them all, I can't rightly say the first two are in serious contention for Anime of the Year. In May I Ask, the insistence on focusing on a will they won't they dynamic between Scarlet and Prince Julius rubbed me the wrong way, seemed to fly in the face of the premise established by the first episode. It's good that the show ended on her punching him so hard he blasted off into space like Team Rocket, but still, his near-constant presence throughout the season was not something I needed or enjoyed. Sanda, while consistently good throughout, simply never reached the heights of its opening episode. Don't get me wrong, it's got a fun art style, compelling characters, and a unique setting, with some pointed commentary on how adolescence is met and portrayed by adults. It's a good show, but its ending leaves something to be desired, and even without that, it's just not quite as consistently amazing as the anime of the season. This Monster Wants to Eat Me. This is a show that does a lot with a little. It's not going to wow you with impressive visual effects set pieces, but what visuals it does have, it employs with care and precision to make you feel something, to get you invested in Hinako's melancholy, in Shiori's inhuman gratitude. It's a narrative all about empathy, about getting you to understand how these people got to the dark places they're at, then still making sure you want to see them come out the other end okay. It's a show whose dark mood sweeps you away and envelops you like the ocean crushing in around you, all made meaningful for the idea that the good you put out into the world just may one day find its way back to you. Ultimately, between the best anime of each season, Takapi, Hikaru, No Freaking Way, and This Monster, of course you should watch them all, but of those four, the one that stands out among the rest, the one that wins the Tyranno Award for Anime of the Year, which is a real thing that exists because I made it up just now, my Anime of the Year is Takapi's Original Sin. Congratulations, Takapi, as if that means anything. Anyway, let's move on to other stuff now.
And now for something completely different.
Let's give it up for James Gunn, shall we? From the Guardians of the Galaxy movies to the Suicide Squad, the man has been consistent in his helming of the greatest comic book films since Iron Man came along and decided to flip the film industry upside down. This year found him back at it again, and I couldn't be happier, because James Gunn's Superman was one of the best films of the year. You don't need me to synopsize this movie, do you? It's Superman! Superman does Superman stuff. Found family, choosing kindness and empathy and goodness over cynicism, all that good Superman stuff. I'm really trying to find something to dislike about this film, and I just can't do it. I love opening in media res. This is a movie that wastes no time. It knows we're all used to superheroes by now and is more than comfortable jumping straight into the action. I love how Superman himself is a beacon of hope again. Here we've got a film that acknowledges the broader geopolitical complexities that such a figure might brush up against, then is confident in asserting that actually hope is good. It's okay to fight for human life and dignity, to prioritize those things above all else. Hope is punk rock. And it's got so much heart. I loved Clark and Lois's relationship, the push and pull as they try to grapple with what's right and coming out the other end stronger for it. I love Clark's quiet, supportive relationship with his adoptive parents. The scene where he sits down and hugs Pa Kent made me cry. Then there's the whole thing of Clark choosing found family over blood. Family's what you make of it, not what you're forced into, allowing the film to end on just the perfect shot of Clark smiling, content in the life he's made for himself. Hope's the name of the game. I love this film to pieces. James Gunn, please marry me.
I was a ghost, I was alone.
If you'd told me at the start of the year that an animated Netflix film called K-pop Demon Hunters would be one of the best of the year, I would have said, "Who are you? How did you get in my house?" Then I would have laughed at you as the police dragged you away. K-pop? Don't care. Netflix original? That's where movies go to die. Well, joke's on you, hypothetical past me, because K-pop Demon Hunters does, in fact, slap. Do people still say slap, or am I behind the loop? The film's about a Korean pop idol group who sings music and fights off demons. The lead, Rumi, is secretly half demon and has to wrestle with reconciling her demon blood with the conflicting sacred duty she spent her whole life performing, along the way testing and strengthening her bonds with those who matter most and becoming her best self. First off, the songs are all, of course, bangers. Absolute earworms that I've found myself returning to time and time again. Take Down, Golden, What It Sounds Like, even goddamn Soda Pop. I mean, what do you even want me to say? It's all peak. But the movie isn't just a vehicle for a good album. It itself is also stellar. The animation is, of course, fantastic, expressive and energetic, and oh so fun. And the narrative carrying it all, one of fearing rejection due to who you are, then learning to embrace yourself and making family with those who see and accept you for who you are, is one that resonates. For its addicting music, exciting animation, and heartfelt story, this is probably the most rewatchable movie of the year. I feel uniquely unqualified to extol the virtues of Sinners because I am, not to put too fine a point on it, the pastiest motherfucker you'll ever meet in your life. But I'll give it the college try. Sinners is about two brothers, both played by Michael B. Jordan, who ride back into their hometown after years of absence, having stolen a good chunk of cash from some crime syndicates. And they use those funds to open a juke joint for the local black community. Things seem to be going well at first, with them making new connections and rekindling old ones, before an Irish vampire shows up to spoil the fun. Chaos ensues. So on a craft level, this film is immaculate. The lighting, color grading, shot composition, all that general filmmaking stuff is deliberately constructed to accentuate and amplify the action horror elements once that parts of the story kicks in. It feels gritty, real, visceral, which is perfect for both the grounded historical foundation it needs to set and the action that foundation serves as a stage for. And even before that, there's the shot, if you know, you know, which is unlike anything else put to film this year and honestly could just be director Ryan Coogler and cinematographer Autumn Durland Arkapaw showing off, and honestly good for them. It's a celebration of culture through the ages with music, and damn, is it magical. But then there's the narrative, thematic meat to dig into, and oh boy, that's a juicy film. The story of enterprising black men in the early 20th century trying to build something soulful and meaningful in the face of the social and racial pressures of the time, only to then be set upon by an Irish vampire, all of which is grounded in a respect for the music of each side's culture. Vampires have always been a metaphor for the aristocracy sucking the lower classes dry, and now the vampire is one racially stigmatized group using music to try to subsume another. Man, that's a spicy thematic journey right there. The film's got it all. Solid filmmaking craft, tight narrative pacing, exciting action, and thematic density. Film of the year, easy. In this section, we're gonna cheat a little.
That's right, we're gonna cheat.
I can't say I watched all that much in the way of completely new television shows this year, so what I'm going to do instead is talk about whole series which had new seasons released this year. That work for you? Don't respond, I can't hear you. Hacks is one of the funniest shows I've ever seen in my life. It premiered in 2021, and its fourth season aired from April to May of this year. It's about two comedians, the washed-up stand-up comic Deborah Vance and up-and-comer Ava Daniels, who start working together to revive Deborah's career and kickstart Ava's at the behest of their mutual manager. What starts as a tumultuous adversarial relationship slowly matures into a deeper admiration, respect, and care for one another. So this show has made me laugh and cry more than almost any other, and that all comes down to the powerhouse performances of Jean Smart and Hannah Einbinder in the lead roles. Both of them are consistently hilarious, and their banter, whether comedic or dramatic, is always enthralling. Watching them slowly grow to care about each other, even as they can't help but deeply hurt each other, makes for some of the most heart-wrenching and warming drama on television. For example, and this has stayed lodged in my mind ever since I first saw it years ago, I love the beat at the very end of the first season where, after Deborah and Ava have separated on pretty bad terms, Ava's dad passes away. Then, perhaps feeling remorseful or just missing her new partner in comedy, Deborah shows up at the funeral, sees how down everyone is, and decides to take charge by getting people to tell funny stories about Ava's dad's life, turning the somber affair into a more open and healing one, in turn helping to repair her relationship with Ava. It and the show as a whole are sweet, heartfelt, and oh, so funny. Absolutely watch this if you can, and apropos of nothing, here's how Einbinder ended her acceptance speech for when she won an Emmy for her role in the show.
I just want to say, finally, go Birds, fuck ICE, and free Palestine. Thank you.
That's right, he's the GOAT!
The Diplomat is an ongoing political thriller. It debuted on Netflix in 2023, and its third season dropped in October of this year. It follows Kate Weiler, who's appointed U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom, as she tries to unravel conspiracies while dealing with her crumbling marriage to her husband, Hal. One of the main reasons this show remains compelling is the raw plotting of it all. The Tin says it's a political thriller, and boy does this show do a solid job of that. Plots are unraveled, twists are turned, good guys are traitors, and traitors are good guys. And it's not just that this show has surprises, but that its developments and twists and what have you naturally build on one another. Watching the narrative unfold is thus like watching dominoes fall, except the dominoes get progressively larger and cause bigger and bigger shockwaves as they land, all culminating in season-ending cliffhangers that make you absolutely furious the next season isn't out yet. So in terms of pacing and intrigue, this show nails it. But a good plot is nothing without characters to unravel it, and while the supporting cast is all excellent, the show is absolutely carried by the powerhouse performances of lead actors actors Kerry Russell and Rufus Sewell. On their own, they're both arresting, charismatic actors at incredible risk of breaking their backs by carrying whatever scenes they're in. But put them in a scene together and man, watch the sparks fly. They bounce off each other so well you forget you're watching actors perform. You get lost in the reality they seem to be living, of a couple who knows each other too well to truly be done with each other, yet by the same token can't help but drive each other up the wall. Years of history implicit in a single argument, the tension between yearning and seething so thick you could bludgeon someone to death with it. They are a true delight. Them, combined with the overall strong plotting, makes this the most bingeable watch I'll recommend. This is a bit of a weird one because the television adaptation of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time, a 15-book fantasy series, got off to a famously rocky start with its first season in 2021, owing to changes from the source material and production woes caused by the pandemic, which most notably included one of the main actors piecing out before production had wrapped. The second season in 2023, though it had its share of questionable deviations, was a notable improvement over the first, leaving viewers hopeful that maybe this wasn't going to be a total disaster after all. Finally, this year, those hopes were met with Season 3, which proved itself to be not only a good adaptation of the source material, but in general, a solid season of television. I'm serious, I think Season 3 of The Wheel of Time is genuinely fantastic. There's some deviations, yes, but for the most part, this season is faithful to the source material in all the most important parts, especially the fourth episode, The Road to the Spear, which features main character Rand experiencing visions of the lives of his past selves, revealing the nature of the people he aims to recruit to his side and how the world came to be. A sequence lifted basically right off the pages with such fidelity that it's truly awe-inspiring to watch unfold. Even most of the deviations I'm on board with. Some, like Elaine playing the part of a bard and singing a show original song, are smart adaptations to help the story fit the new medium. And said song, The Hills of Tanchico, is an actual earworm still stuck with me months later. And some changes are just plain satisfying, like thank God, Elaine and Avienda were finally allowed to kiss, like they always should have.
Finally.
That's what I'm talking about!
So yes, this is an amazing season of television, and it made us still with the show hyped as all hell for the adaptation to continue. Seriously, it's so good that I'm considering dedicating a whole video to it, something like how the Wheel of Time grew its beard, which would be a lot of work, but if there's interest, let me know. Anyway, what makes this an awkward recommendation, then, is not that the show indeed took 3 seasons to grow its beard, but rather, just as the show did grow its beard, just as it got really good and was primed to deliver us the best fantasy television series since early Game of Thrones, it got immediately canceled by Amazon with no hope for a revival by another distributor. What can I say but...
God f***ing damn it!
Full disclosure, I didn't play that many new games this year, so neither of the entries here should be terribly exciting, but you know, they're good ones, so might as well give them props, right? Hades 2, the long-awaited sequel to, wouldn't you know it, Hades, is an action roguelike where you take on the role of Melenoi, Princess of the Underworld, as you fight your way to the depths of Tartarus to put an end to the evil machinations of Chronos, Titan of Time. Run after run you'll attempt, time after time you'll die, but just as time marches ever forth, with enough persistence, experience, experimentations with the game's plethora of combat options, and general witchery, you may just overcome the inevitable. Just about everything in Hades 2 is perfect. From a gameplay perspective, Hades 1 was already so polished, and 2 is all of that and more. More weapons, more boons, more areas, just more. And all matching the first game's degree of polish, making it endlessly replayable. Shout out to the Aspect of Medea. Each run contributing to some minor form of progression, whether the overall narrative, your relationships with the other characters, or gathering resources for upgrades, makes everything you do feel meaningful. You've always got a goal to work toward, making that drive for just one more run all the more compelling. And the characters themselves are just as lovable as ever. There's Nemesis's gruff, cold exterior slowly warming as you worm your way into her heart. Then there's Melenoi herself, starting as the revenge-driven witch, which gives you, the player, ample motivation to go on the nightly runs, slowly revealing her more thoughtful, kinder aspects as she develops her relationships with the rest of the cast. In every way, this game is just as compelling as its predecessor. Yeah, the initial ending was kind of weak, and I haven't yet played through the new ending, but even in spite of that, Hades 2 was easily my most played game of the year, and that doesn't happen by accident.
She's back.
Can you believe we waited 7 years for Silksong, and then it came out, and it was worth the wait? Hollow Knight Silksong is the long-awaited sequel to Hollow Knight, wouldn't you know? It's an action platformer 2D exploration adventure where you take on the role of Hornet as she fights her way through the kingdom of Farloom, and unravels its history and the mystery of its silky infestation. On every presentation front, this game is absolutely beautiful. The hand-drawn sprite work is mesmerizing, what with Hornet's little shimmy-shimmy. The environmental design is varied and universally gorgeous, giving each zone a unique identity and helping the overall world to feel cohesive and navigable. And the music, oh god, the music! Perfectly tuned to create the melancholic atmosphere of a crumbling kingdom. And the gameplay itself, it just feels so good. Precise and responsive, flying around the map with various movement options, the dash, claw line, wall jump, and various pogos, once you get good at it, is absolutely sublime, makes you feel like a damn god. The Abyss escape sequence in particular is probably my favorite gaming moment of the year. It's demanding and puts all your platforming skills to the ultimate test, but once you lock in and enter that flow state, the thrills it elicits are like no other. Speaking of challenging, much ado has been made about the game's difficulty, and yes, it's hard, but I never found it unfair. The game gives you plenty of tools to experiment with to subvert its hardest parts, and the difficulty only ever made my eventual overcoming of the game's various obstacles all that more gratifying. The first Sinner is my favorite boss in the game, and just might be one of my favorite bosses of all time. And yes, I will brag that I managed to beat the High Halls Gauntlet without Chakra's help, and without flipping the switch that disabled those silk-sucking things. I mean, I was shaking all over when I finally beat it and had to immediately stand up and go for a walk, but still, what a thrill. Game of the year right here. My problem with trying to integrate books into best of the year videos like this is I almost never read new releases. I read a lot, here's visual evidence of that, but there's so much that's been published that it's the work of a lifetime just to make a dent in catching up. So, like with the TV section, the best I can offer is talking about series which had volumes released this year. Cool. The Bone Season is an ongoing supernatural alternate history series by novelist Samantha Shannon. The first volume, The Bone Season, released in 2013, and the fifth and latest, The Dark Mirror, released in February of this year. 2 further volumes are planned for publication in the coming years. Starting in the year 2059, the Bone Season series follows Paige Mahoney, a young woman who makes her living in London's criminal underground. In this version of Earth, a subset of people are clairvoyants, with a variety of related powers. Clairvoyants are persecuted just for existing, and Paige happens to be a rare variety of clairvoyant, which makes her a prime candidate for the titular Bone Season. She's kidnapped and learns the truth of the world. England, or as it's now known Scion, is secretly run by a cabal of supernatural entities called Rephites, and the leader of the Rephites wants to kill her so as to take her power for herself. So, the series tracks Paige as she first strives to survive her reaping, then tries to take control of London's underground to mount a resistance against the Rephite oppressors. On a fundamental level, Shannon is a compelling writer. Her prose is concise and evocative, and she knows how to pace a story. There's a constant sense of forward momentum, whether characters have an active goal they're working toward or are caught up in an intense action scene. In other words, these are enthralling reads, hard to put down once you're into them. Shannon's also a deft hand at characterization. These are third-person limited novels. That is, they never break away from Paige's perspective. Good thing, then, that Paige is a compelling protagonist. She's angry, a young Irish woman who's one of the few survivors of a brutal massacre of her people. Even before the Rephites revealed themselves as the world's puppet masters, her people were already oppressed by Scion, and then stack on top of that the fact that she has to hide from society due to her clairvoyance. Paige sits at the intersection of the hardest hit groups in this society, compounding her anger into a righteous fury that perfectly poises her to help the people rise up. Her being Irish also draws pointed historical parallels, what with the real-world history between Ireland and the British Empire. Despite all her hardships, though, she's not completely cold-hearted. She can be genuinely warm to her friends and even has a tense romance, all of which lends her the three-dimensionality required of the protagonist of a long-running series. And tracking her slow growth across the novels from terrified young woman to criminal to hardened leader is compelling. Finally, the series presents a unique world that's easy to get lost in. Ghosts are real, and if you're lucky, you only know that because a clairvoyant tethered one to their house. If not, it might be because a ghostly entity just burst out of a tear in the fabric of reality and is about to rip you asunder. Stack on top of that a detailed network of underground organizations and the Rephites with their ever-expanding reach, snaking their way into controlling various governments, and you've got a world that feels almost as fully realized as our own. A terrifying one. Yes, but one that's all so engrossing. Tomes and Tea is a 4-volume cozy fantasy series by Rebecca Thorne. The first volume, Can't Spell Treason Without Tea, released in 2022, and the fourth and final volume, Alchemy and a Cup of Tea, released in August of this year. The books follow Reyna, a Queen's Guard who comes to the realization that her queen is evil and doesn't give a shit about Reyna's life, and Kianth, the Arcandor, basically the strongest mage in the land compelled into diplomatic service by a magic rock. They're secretly dating, and both decide, you know what, our lives suck. Let's run away and open a bookshop together. So they do that, and the books track them as they solve the various obstacles that crop up along the way, from their old lives catching up to them to the dragon invasion problem the town they've settled in has been facing. I'm gonna be real with you, there's nothing terribly deep here. This series does not even approach the level of depth from the previous recommendation, but goddamn, these books are fun. Its 2 leads, whose perspectives the series switches between, are each distinct and fun in their own right. Reyna's the cool, collected warrior with a quiet warmth, especially prone to thawing in Kianth's presence, and Kianth is the more bubbly, outgoing jokester, but knows how to get serious when the chips are down, especially when Reyna's in trouble. The 2 women have a fun romance, one built on a foundation of honesty. It's not without its troubles, but when they're getting along, you can't help but smile to see these 2 soulmates living their best lives. The books aren't without their stakes or tensions, and while those do help each volume feel distinct, they're overall compelling for how much they manage to invest you in their 2 leads building a good life for themselves. If you can read just the first couple chapters and find yourself invested in these 2, then you'll be good to go for the series. So that's the year. Goodbye, 2025. I would say I'm hopeful for 2026, but given, the general state of things, I'm not going to hold my breath. Still, there's plenty of life to enjoy so long as you're open to it. I'll spend no shortage of time looking for some light out there. I hope you'll do the same with me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one.